Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. My name is Desi. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager here at Toon. And hosting this webinar today is Marc-André Bouvier-Pelletier, who is our product manager for Harmony. Most of you are familiar with Marc-André. He will be going through the best features we have in this release over the course of this 1 hour webinar. You'll be given the opportunity to ask questions as well within the last 20 to 30 minutes. But as you start to see features that Marc-André is going to go through in this release, please feel free to write in your questions into the question side of the panel on the right side of GoToWebinar. And from there, we'll be able to answer your questions. There's a lot of features. There's a lot of new developments in Harmony 15, and we're going to be covering them all through Harmony Premium. And Marc-André will do his very best to go through each one of these new releases and each one of these new features. And again, if you have any questions, please type them into the question side of GoToWebinar on the right side. And also, just so you guys know, what will happen is we are recording this webinar and it will be live online within a few days as well, so you can rewatch this. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the webinar.
All right, thanks Desi for the introduction. A great introduction as always. As Desi mentioned, I'll be showing you the main features that we've introduced in this new release of Harmony 15. And we've got some great features ranging for all types of workflow. Either it's paperless workflow drawing directly into the software, or cutout workflow using puppets to animate into the software using software. We've added features all across, even for effects and compositing. So I'll start by showing you the drawing tools and the improvements we've done to the paperless workflow in this version of the software. And the first thing I'll show you is the changes we've done to the brush tool, or to the textured vector brush. So you might already be familiar with the brush tool, the textured vector brush that was already existing in the software. And those of you that know the brush know that the look and feel of the brush was not the same as our Bitmap brush. So we have also the ability to draw in Bitmap inside Harmony. And when you're drawing with Bitmap, you have really a lot of options to choose from, and you can make your brush tip look very natural, or look whatever way you want it. And we didn't have this with the vector brush in the past, and now we've actually moved or applied the engine, the Bitmap engine, to the vector brush. So now we can have the same look and feel on the Bitmap, on the vector textured brush, but with having the advantage of the brush, which means that, like, this character here was drawn using vector drawings. So all the strokes are individual strokes because they're all vector, but inside there's a texture for each of them. And how was this created? So if I take my brush tool here and I go in my tool properties and I click on the arrow here to display the advanced tool properties, you can see I have a new drop down right here, which I can choose between the solid and the textured brush. So we actually also did some changes to the way the solid vector brush works. So now you have 3 different tips you can select from. In the past, we had preset tips. You could select a circle, you could select an angled brush, but you couldn't really select the roundness and the angle you wanted exactly. And some of the angles were not available. But now you have the ability to select the tip that you want. You can select the roundness that you want and the angle that you want, the exact angle that you want to use for that brush. So you can actually draw something like a ribbon, create a ribbon brush, and get exactly what you want. So this is by merging the engine from the Bitmap brush into the vector brush. And what we have now is, if you select textured vector, it gives you access to all the same tips that you have in the Bitmap brush. So now I'm using a vector brush, and I have the same tips that I have available to me in the Bitmap brush. I have them now for the vector brush. So for example, if I select this tip here, and I'm not going to do any fancy thing for now, and just show you, if I just draw with that, let me put my roundness back to 100%. There we go. And if I draw with that, you see I'm just doing stamps with that tip, as I would be doing with a Bitmap drawing brush. And now this doesn't look very good because it's just repeats the tip. So what I want to do is I want to actually add some randomness. So I can add some random angle, some random size to it. And if I draw that again, I can see now it's kind of rotating and adding some randomness to it. I'll reduce the spacing. Oh, that's a little bit too much. There we go. And now I have a nice looking brush that I can draw with. So it really looks like a bitmap brush that I'm using, that I'm drawing inside a vector envelope. So I have all the same options that I have on the bitmap brush, and, plus the ones that I have on a vector brush. So I still have the centerline smoothing and the contour smoothing. And now I have transparency like we have on the bitmap brush, and the dual tip. So I can even combine tips like I can with a bitmap brush. So let's say I combine the tips here. What will this do? Let me see. And I'll select this one without randomness. And you'll see I'll just cut the shape like this using that. But if I add a little bit of spacing like this and a little bit of randomness, so we'll take the texture generated by the tip and it will combine it with another tip to make it a little bit harder on the edge. So I'm combining the two tips using the multiply blend mode here together to really get a brush that's a little bit harder. I can reduce the hardness here. So it helps to define the edges of my brush like that. All right, so, and I still have the same bitmap brush. If I still want to use the same regular bitmap brush we had in the past, we still have the paper texture tab here available. So you can just select a texture from here. If I enable this, and what I draw with that is just revealing a texture. And you can now actually combine them like you can on a bitmap brush. So combining a texture tip with a paper texture to really create something that looks like you're actually drawing on paper. And now if I look at this drawing, I'll make this a little bit bigger. This drawing here was drawn with this line. So the lumberjack dark line. So this is all drawn with vector drawings, vector brush, but that has texture inside. And now the new thing we've also introduced that's you're able to do now is you're actually able to use the contour editor on your brushes. So you weren't able to do that in the past, but I select a brush here, I can actually use the contour editor and the texture inside will change as well. So if you want to reshape your line, you can do it now with the contour editor on the textured vector brushes. But you know, the brush is a lot harder to edit than the pencil line because instead of having just the center line, it has a line on both sides. So when you want to reshape your line, you have two edges to modify. So it kind of makes it a little bit difficult to edit. So what we did is we've created a new tool called the centerline tool, centerline tool editor. And when you use that, you can actually reshape a line. So I can take a brush line. This is a regular vector textured brush. And when I select it, the software generates a center line that I can use to reshape the drawing. So I can easily, if I need to draw a new mouth, instead of just drawing the mouth, I want to make him really, really happy, I can just edit the lines like this, as if this was a pencil line, and preserving the look that a bitmap drawing will have. And since this is a vector drawing, I can still go and edit the individual lines. So I'll have to make his beard a little bit lower. So I can select those vectors and scale them down a little bit like that. I can also do some inking like I can on a regular vector, which I wouldn't be able to do on a bitmap drawing. So I can select the strokes after they've been drawn, go in my color view here and just select a different color for his beard. So I can actually do some inking as well because this is a vectored texture. So it really, really gives you all the flexibility, all the look, all the natural look that you have with bitmap drawing tools, but in a vector world. So you can actually edit the drawings after they've been made to make just small corrections to your drawings and don't have to erase and redraw the line, just slightly edit the line using the centerline editor tool. Now, another thing we've done to the drawing tools inside this version of Harmony is we've actually done a couple of just some small changes or improvements to the pencil tool. So if I take my pencil tool here and I look, it's actually related to the pencil opacity. So in the past, people that have been using a pencil opacity, texture opacity on a pencil line would have noticed that the actual textures were listed inside the color view here, inside the list of all the color palettes. And this was kind of confusing because you could select a pencil opacity color texture as a color and vice versa. So it was could cause problems down the line in production. So now what we've done is we've added buttons here to select what you want to see. So do I want to see colors? So this one shows me just the color palettes. This one will show me the actual texture palettes. So all the textures that I have in my scene to be used on a pencil texture. And if I click on this one, I can see both of them at the same time. So this really simplifies and helps to separate the two lists, and actually will also prevent from doing mistakes. So if I'm selecting this and I click on a texture here, it will actually apply the texture as a texture opacity and not as a color like it would do in the past. Another thing is the polyline tool. So for those of you that are familiar with the polyline, you might know that the polyline tool didn't support the textures in the past. Now it does. So you can actually draw using the polyline tool with a texture, a pencil texture. So, and after you've drawn, you can, as always, as you could in the past, just change the texture that's assigned to it. So now when you're doing cleanup, you can draw with the polyline and apply the texture at the same time, so you don't have to go and apply the texture after the drawings have been made. And one last improvement we've done, as we did with the contour editor, we've also made it possible for the envelope tool, so I'm talking about the envelope drawing tool, to modify a vector that has texture. So in the past it didn't work. Now, whoops, there we go. Now we can actually select the brushes with texture and modify them to whatever you want. So in the past it would move the vector and the texture would not follow. Now it does. So this really helps you to fine-tune your drawings, do some small adjustments really, really fast, even if you're using textures in your brushes. All right, so the next change we've made, or improvements we've made in this version of the software, is we now have also guides and vanishing points to help you drawing. So if you're drawing layouts inside Harmony, you can use the guides view to add some guides and help you to draw with vanishing points. So if I select my drawing tool here, and I want to draw with guides, I need to add a guides view to my layout. So I'll just go here, click on the plus, and I'll add a guides view to my viewport in here. In this scene, I already have a couple of guides that are set up, but if I don't have the guide that I want, I can just click on the plus here and I can add it. I can add just a normal square grid, a 1-point perspective, 2-point, 3 points, and I have presets of 3 points as a bird's eye view or a worm's eye view. And after I've added those, one of those preset, I can actually, I'll see the vanishing points in my my drawing viewer and my camera view, but I can actually move the points to whatever position I want to use them from. And this is all undoable. So if I move a point by accident, I can actually just undo. And after I've positioned the points, the first thing I'll do is I'll lock the guide. So I'll use the button in the guides view here to lock the guide, so I don't accidentally pick and move the guides as I'm drawing. So once I've added the guides, and this layout was already started, I can just finish it. When I'm going to be drawing, you can see there's some lines around my drawing cursor. This means that when I'm drawing, I'm going to be bound, or I'm going to be drawing directly in the direction of a vanishing point. Of course, I should select the right brush right here, and do I have the right color? Yes, that's the proper color. There you go. So when I start drawing, if I start drawing in a specific direction, the line, my line that I'm drawing will eventually get locked to that direction, like this. And I have very long lines, so they help me if I want to, for example, I don't want to draw a line over the door here, I can just go here, and I have a very long line that I can see where the line is over there. Or if I want to, I can just draw very long lines like that, and then I'll use my cutter tool to cut them. And when I reach the horizon, I'm close to the horizon, I might have difficulty drawing in the right angle. Maybe I'm drawing because it's very close. So I can press on the arrows on my keyboard, and when I do this, this locks me to one of the specific axes. So I'm going to lock myself to that axis, so no matter which direction I start drawing, it will always draw in the right direction. And after I've done all my lines, if I have some lines that are too long, like I did here, I can just use my cutter tool. So there we go, cutter tool, and just quickly clean up those lines by just drawing a line over them. So this is a feature of the cutter tool that's been there for ages inside Harmony. If you draw a straight line across a line, it will erase the line up to the intersection that it has with the next vector drawing.
We have a really interesting question from Melissa, and she's asking, can you add more than 3 vanishing points to create the banana pans or fisheye perspectives?
Yes, no, we can't. Not when we've added the guides and vanishing points. We've looked at all the possibilities, and I know you can have like 4 points, which is not used that much, or 5 points to have a fisheye effect. But this is not. Yeah, we didn't do it in this version yet. So this is only up to 3, but you can position them wherever you want. But one thing you can do actually is you can have more than one set of guides inside a scene. So I have, for example, I have 5 sets of guides. So if I have, for example, a room and I'm using a set of vanishing point to draw the room, and then I have a table, but the table is not at the same angle as the room, I can add another set to draw the table with the proper perspective. And I can just select the one I want to use when I'm drawing. And if I don't want to be bound to that vanishing point anymore, I just click an empty space, unselect it, or just click on that button here to disable the guides. And whenever I click on a guide, it re-enables it right away. So it's really, really simple to use. And if you're using a guide that you want to use in another scene, you can actually copy paste between scenes, or you can just export. So if you select a guide or multiple guides, you can go in the menu on the right hand side and export the guides. This creates an XML with all the information about the guides, and then you can import them into another scene or give them to somebody else that will be using them in their drawing. So I hope that answers the question. I'll move on to the next feature that we've added in this version. It's about color. So coloring. So when you're working and coloring your drawings inside Harmony, sometimes you can accidentally draw using the wrong color or paint using the wrong color. For example, the lumberjack right here, I'm going to make sure I'm selecting the lumberjack layer. There we go. I've painted his sleeve with the wrong color, and his hat and his shirt. So he actually should be drawn with the painted with the red color, but I've painted all the frames here, and it's not me that painted that, but somebody else, with the wrong color. It's supposed to be red. And you know that in Harmony, everything that you color, everything that you draw has the color unique ID assigned to it. So I could just go and edit the color, but since this color is actually used somewhere else, so if I just try to make this red, this also changes my shack to red, because this is actually a real color that's used in another layer in my shack layer here. So I cannot just change the RGB values. I'll have to repaint my drawing. And repainting all the drawings in the scene can be quite long. So we have a function now that you just, click the color, select the color, right-click the color in your color view, and you select the Recolor Drawings command. And this opens the dialog here, where you can select what you want to recolor, just the current drawing, all the drawings in the selected layers. So right now I have the lumberjack layers, or all the drawings in the scene. In this case, I don't want to do the whole scene because I would be recoloring the shack as well. I just want to do the selected layer, and then I select the color I want to use. So it's from the lumberjack palette, and it's called the cloth 01 color. And when I click OK, Harmony will go through all the drawings on that layer that are exposed or not, and will repaint them using the proper pot for me, so I don't have to do that step myself. And you can actually repaint or recolor multiple pots if you want at the same time. In this case, I have only this one. And something similar that we've added as well, if you want to remap a whole character to another palette. So this can happen sometimes when you're doing multiple characters that have the same base. It could be in cutout or in paperless animation as well. But let's say you're in cutout and you have a character and you want to use the same character as a base for another character. It's a crowd scene, or he's an evil twin or something like that. And you don't want to have to repaint everything, but you just want to change the colors. you'll have to make a duplicate of the color palette, and you have to repaint manually, which you don't want to use. You cannot do a clone because then it would affect both characters if they are in the same scene at the same time. So what you can do is you can actually, like I did for a single color, I can assign new colors to a whole character by mapping one palette to another. So I have a script here called the Recolor Drawings. I open this, and this script creates this little dialog here, which I select which palette I want to use as a source and which palette I want to use as a destination. So I'm going to remap the colors from the lumberjack to the alien lumberjack on the selected layers. I create a color mapping and I apply. This will go through all the drawings in the selected layer and will recolor them using the proper color, like it did right here. So it recolored my drawing to the new palette that I've created from that. And how the way the software does it is it takes the order of the colors. So you need to make sure you have the colors in the right order in both palettes to be able to remap. It cannot use the RGB values or the names or anything like that because the names might be different, and obviously the RGB values will be different. So it uses the order of the colors inside the palette. And this is obviously undoable, so I can just undo and go back to the original color of my character if I've done that by mistake. All right, so this is really, really efficient if you need to create new versions of your character or create new characters based on another character that already exists. Now, the other thing we've done in this version to help the paperless workflow is the ability to display a layer as thumbnails. So when I have a layer in my timeline view here, if I click on the thumbnail, there's a small button here, a thumbnail button. This uncollapses the layer and I can see the thumbnails in my timeline. I'm going to zoom in. I'm zooming in with the 2 key here, 1 to zoom out, or I can just use the slider if I want to. Now I can actually see the thumbnails of each drawing. So I see exactly where a drawing starts and where a drawing ends. It really helps to visualize that. I also have on the right hand side, I have the number of exposure the drawing is exposed for. And at the bottom left, I have the name of the drawing. So this is drawing 65. And there's also some invisible handles that can help me to adjust the timing very quickly. So I have 2 handles. I have a yellow one and I have a red one. So the yellow one, when I click and drag, it will push or pull everything that's after that drawing. So if I need to do some adjustments and I don't want to lose what I have after, I can just push everything by using the yellow handle. But I can also use the red handle to overwrite. So if I'm just moving that, it won't change the timing of anything that's after or before, and it will just overwrite whatever is after or before. And when I'm using those handles to change the timing right here, it's actually also, if you look closely at the number of exposures, the number of exposures changes as I drag. So I know if I want to go from 3 to 6, I see this is 6, I can release right here. So it's really, really helpful to quickly adjust the timing and visualize the timing of your layer inside the timeline view. And the other thing we've added is the ability to change the opacity quickly. So if you're working with multiple layers, and I should be having a drawing tool selected. So if you're drawing with a rough layer, a clean layer, different layers, different characters, you can quickly adjust the opacity of the layer to really visualize exactly what you're working on the way you want it. So this is really, really great for paperless animation, really makes it a lot easier to visualize everything you want to do. The next thing I'll be showing you right here. So maybe I should preview the scene. I haven't previewed the scene yet. I'll need to go and hide the shack though. I've enabled the shack. There we go. I don't want to see the layout anymore. All right, and I'll collapse the layer right here. So this is just the lumberjack. He's chopping wood. A long day's work, and he's throwing the wood inside a cart, but he doesn't know there's a beaver there stealing his wood. Haha, bye-bye. So anyway, he's going away with the wood, and oh my God, what's going on with my wood? So what I want to do right here is I want to do an effect. I want to do a special effect, a lighting effect on the wood. And what we have now, we have a new tool to help me do some mattes that I can use as effects. So it's called the animated matte. So what I've done is I've drawn a little drawing here. Go. So a little drawing, and I've used the animated matte generator here to be able to generate a matte that is going to be animated over time. So this is just a regular drawing. I can show it to you in the drawing view right here. Oops, that's not the right one. There we go, in the drawing view. So this is just a regular drawing on which I have an animated matte. So if I disable that, you see the drawing goes back to its original position. Now I want to have this illuminate the cart. So I'll take my transform tool here and I'll go in my tool properties, and this is a really important step. I'll enable this control selection mode, and when this is enabled, I'm able to select just the points from my matte without selecting drawings from other layers. Then I can actually move those points around. And I want to actually animate this, so I'll go forward in time, maybe here, and I'll make the light shine at the cart right here like that. Then I'll add a keyframe right here, and I'll go a little bit farther and stretch these like this. So I have vertices that I can use to move the matte, and I also have handles to adjust the shape of the matte exactly the way I want to. And you see I have two color contours. I have a red contour, which is the outer contour, and I have a green contour, which is the inner contour. And this is used for doing feathering. So you can actually do feathering with that, like this. And now I've animated this, and now it's just really linear timing. And since this is animated over time, it's animatable over time, I can actually just apply some sort of ease on it, like this, and then maybe another ease here, like that. So I can really have the timing that I want on this thing here. There we go, boom. And now it's shining. So you can actually animate the shape of a matte using that tool very easily and do some adjustment to the timing. So you don't have to draw the matte at each frame. You can really modify the matte, how the matte works. So this is a light shining. So if I do a software render right here, you can see how it looks like. So I'm using also a glow to combine with the animated matte to display, to make that little light shining on the cart. Now another thing we've done is the ability to manipulate multiple points on an envelope deformer. So for those of you that have been using Harmony and have been using envelope deformers, you know that sometimes you have multiple points. You always have multiple points on an envelope, and you want to manipulate multiple points on that envelope. So I can actually select multiple points. I was already able to move those points, but I couldn't rotate or scale or do things like that to those points with the previous version. Now in my deformation toolbar, I have this little button here called Show Manipulator. And when I enable this, it displays manipulators around a bounding box around the points that I can use to rotate the points or even scale the points if I want to. And I'm manipulating a set of points with one operation. So it really makes it a lot easier to reshape envelopes like this to add maybe a little bit of bounce on his tail without having to move and rotate and adjust these points one by one. So it's really a lot more efficient now to be able to adjust the shape of an envelope using the manipulator around it. So everything going fine so far? Is there any questions about anything I've shown?
We have lots of questions. We'll start with Adam's question. So Adam Oliver's asking, does the opacity function work with pegs and everything under it?
So the opacity function is it's actually something that already existed on the drawing layers that you could edit by going into the properties. So either if I double click a layer or if I click on the yellow button here to open this, I already had the opacity value. So this is the value that I now able to modify directly from the timeline. So it affects the layer that I select. It doesn't affect multiple layers at the same time. If you want to affect or change the opacity on multiple layers at the same time, you'll use a transparency effect in your node library right here, transparency. Ooh, what did I type? Where did I type? Transparency. So I have a transparency effect right here that I can apply, bring in my node view and apply it on after a composite to apply it on multiple drawings. So this is how you would do on multiple drawings.
So another interesting question comes from Mike. Mike is asking, how do you get the drawing guides to still show when you don't have the brush selected? When the selected tool is selected, the drawing guide disappears.
Yes, so this is how the guides work. They're only displayed when you're using the brush tool or the drawing tool, the pencil tool, because they're the only tools that are affected by the guides. But if you think that's maybe not practical or things like that, just always, guys, send us your comments on the software. Send us comments about what you love about the software, what you like, what makes you save time, and also what you would like to see improve or what you hate about the software, because we need to know all of that stuff. So just write to us. You can write to support, and the support, they will forward all the information to me and to the rest of the team. And this is the way we can actually make the software better and really suit your needs. Now, the next thing I'll be showing you is the master controllers. So we've introduced a concept in Harmony 15 called the master controllers, which are basically scripts that you create while you're rigging the character. So when you rig a character, it's part of the cutout animation pipeline, and it's part of the pre-production process. When you're rigging your character, you will maybe want to create a controller that will allow you to select and manipulate multiple elements, multiple drawings using one controller, one manipulator, and this is the master controllers. These are set up using scripts. There we go. Now look for the master controller. There we go. Let's select this and display the controllers. So the controllers will allow you to manipulate whatever you want in the scene, depending on how you set it up. In this scene, I have multiple controllers. I have one for the head rotation. When I move this one, this will move the whole head. So how this was set up is it actually at the rigging process, the head was broken down in multiple pieces like this. And then different angles were posed by the rigger. So you pose a couple of angles, and after that, with the script, you go and you interpolate between those different head positions. So this is how we can get a nice manipulator to quickly find the position of the head you want to use. I have another controller here that was set up to just help with where the character is looking at. So this is a look at, so the character will look at the dot. I have another controller here that I can use to change the expression on his face. So these are tools for the animator to quickly allow him to, and I'll need to extend the exposure right here. There we go. Tools to quickly allow the animator to do head rotation and poses without having to modify like individual drawings by himself. So even me, that's not very good at animating, and maybe his eyes should be looking a bit down like this, and then he's kind of frowning or he's not happy, and then he goes back up, and now he's happy again. There we go. I've created this. He's just whoop, looking down and frowning and going back up. So these master controllers were set up at the rigging process using scripting. And to be able to set those master controllers, you need to be able to use JavaScript a little bit because it requires coding ability. And we actually have on our website in the learning portal and some information about all of that stuff. So let me pull up a page right here. So I'll go to learn.toonnode.com. So on the learning portal, we have a lot of information about everything inside the software. And if you want to learn something about, let's say, master controllers, you can go into the modules section and you will look for master, just master. There you go, master controllers. And it will bring up the subject of master controllers. And you have a lot of videos, 13 videos on the subjects, from the introduction to creating them to setting them up and different things that you can do with them. And we also have some material that you can download right here that will allow you to follow the course as you go through. So remember, the Learn portal, learn.toonnode.com, is a great learning resources for anything you want to learn inside Harmony. Now, the other thing we have done to make cutout animation a little bit easier, I'll just disable the character right here, is we've added also some new types of nodes called the Constraint Nodes. And I'll just hide the BG right here. There we go. So what are constraint nodes? So I have in my library here a new section called Constraint, which contains 8 new different nodes. And I have 2-point constraint, 3-point constraint, and I also have some dynamic spring. So all of these are used to help the animator as he's animating a character. The 2-point constraint are used, for example, on the legs of a character to allow me to stretch a leg automatically by just pulling on the leg. Can also position one a little bit higher on the knee to be able to, move the knee and have the leg stay together. So on a character like this one, it's really great as well. So I can just position the legs where I want to very easily. I can do both of them at the same time if I want to. But I can also just select his whole body and just move his body sideways or rotate the body, and the feet will stay at the position that they are. And what we've done with this character as well is we've added a little bit of spring on his ears and on his whiskers. So when I move him on the side, you can see that there's a little bit of spring added, a little bit of inertia added to the different parts of the character. So there you go. And I'm going to set a keyframe right here. And now it's going to straighten up a little bit. And even as I'm animating and as I'm rotating, you can see the whiskers, the inertia on the whiskers is doing something. And even on his hair, so on his ears. And you see, if I play this back, got a little bit of spring. So if I look at how this looks in the node view here, I have my constraints that are set up right there inside the node view, 2-point constraint. If I select those and I show the controllers, I will actually see the constraint right here. But I don't need to see them to use them. It's just easy to just click and just on the drawing and go like this. Because I don't want to have to go and click on specific points. It's just easier to just click on the drawing and pull very quickly. This makes it very, very easy, a lot faster to animate some poses with keeping the feet on the ground and also adding some spring to hair, to ears, to whiskers, and things like that. Any questions that pop up while I was demonstrating that?
So in relation to master controls, Rachel is asking, how do master controls nodes differ from script nodes?
So actually, that's a very, very good question. They don't differ much. It's actually pretty much the same. Master controller. If I go and display the master controller, the node here, right here, and I open it, you'll see that it's just kind of a scripting node where on the UI script, this is where I call the actual script that's going to be used to animate, to show the master controller. So this is the script that's inside the scene. So that's it. It's a scripting node that's actually calling a script that will be used as a master controller.
Don is asking, does the constraint work with bone deformers or rigid bones?
It will use the actual constraint. What they do is they use they actually use pegs. But if you look at this character here, he actually has an envelope on his leg, so you can combine both. So I have the envelope here, and I'm stretching the leg, and the envelope would follow because the effect is also applied on the deformer, so they can be combined and used together.
So Frank Summers is asking, can we move back and forth between constraints and FK animation using a switch?
That's a very good question, and actually something I should look into. For sure, it's a different way of rigging when you're using constraint than when you're rigging a character for what you were used to animate in the past. But I don't see why you wouldn't be able to switch between the two. But I don't want to say yes because, just in case. But I think that should be possible. But we should verify this.
Alexis is wondering, any improvements to the post copier, like the ability to use it to paste animation?
Well, that's what the post copier is meant for. So we did some improvements to the post copier in 14.0.1 that we released recently. So that are also in Harmony 15. For example, the ability to paste by name, so you don't have to match the layers. It will match the layers on the names, and this makes it a lot easier to use. And actually, the master controller can be used as a post copier a little bit. So you don't have to open a separate window. You can just manipulate using the master controller as you would be using a post copier. So it can replace a little bit the post copier, the master controller in some cases. But there's a lot of things you can do with the master controller. It's not just a post copier. It can do a lot of things. Now, the next thing I want to show you is a really quick way to do some masks, some mats. So I'll add just a layer right here. There we go. And I'll add actually 2 layers. And maybe I should clean up my node view a little bit right here. So just tidy up my network. There, my node view. There we go. So I've created 2 drawings, and I'll hide the this here. So other improvements we've done in the software to the effect sides is the ability to quickly create masks, and also the ability to have every drawing node have a hidden port that can be used as a mask, and most of the effects also have. So I'll just show that really quickly. So I'll just create a circle here, and I'll fill the circle on this layer, and I'll select the other layer, and I'll take my polyline tool, and I want to draw something, a specific shape with this, and we have a couple of new options that we've added here in the tool properties for the polyline tool, or for the pencil tool as well, and for the stroke tool. So let's say the stroke tool, I want to quickly generate a shape, and I want the shape to be filled. So I have this option here that when I create the shape, it will fill the shape. But you see it leaves some handles dangling and the void. So I'm just going to undo. And then I have another option here that's called trimming. And when I close my shape, it will actually trim the handles that are too long. And then I have another option that will align the handles. So let's say I draw my shape, and I try to close the shape right here. And when I release, it will align the handles together. So I have just one controller here to one point to control this. And this is, all of these options are available on the pencil tool and on the polyline tool as well. So it really makes it a lot faster to create a mat that you want to use as an effect. In this case here, I will just use this. So I have my circle and my shape, and I want to use this as a cutter. And one thing I can do is I can just select this and connect it directly to this drawing layer. So I don't have to add a cutter node anymore. I can just connect this to the left-hand side. So the nodes have a hidden port on the left-hand side that appears when I drag a cable close to it that can be used as a cutter. And if I double click this little thing here, this will change the type of cutter it's using, either an inverted or a normal cutter. And if I click there, I actually have this option inside my view here. There we go. So changing the value on my properties here is the same thing as double clicking right there. And you'll notice that the cable, when it's connected to the mat port, it's actually a dotted line. So I have multiple cables. I can see which one is connected as a cutter and which one is connected to a normal effect. The other thing we've done is it's now possible to, well, it was already possible to display thumbnails in the node view, but now it's possible to make them bigger. And since you can make them bigger, we can actually also change the resolution. So if you have something that's really big, you can change the resolution so you can see clearly what is there. And if you're drawing white on white, it's not very easy to see, so you can actually change the background color of the thumbnails that you see in the node view. So that's another small improvement we've done to the node view to help with the compositing and effects side of the software.
Just before we go on, we have a few compatibility questions. Emily specifically is asking, if I work on a scene in Harmony 15, would I be able to open it and still work on it in Harmony 14?
Well, that's a very good question. Our software, we always make them backward compatible, which means that if you take something from an earlier version, you can open it in the new version and there's no ill effect, everything will work. Though forward compatibility, which is the opposite, is taking something that's created with a new version and bringing it backwards. This is not something that we support, and we can actually say that we support, because when we add new functionalities inside Harmony 15, these don't exist in 14. So when you open a scene in 14, software won't know what to do with those. So we don't recommend doing this, going backwards from 15 to 14. If you do that, you probably will be able to see everything that is supported in 14, but there might be something that breaks, and I can't guarantee that it will work. So we support backward compatibility going from 14 to 15, but going from 15 to 14, this is at your own risk, basically.
Dirk has a question. Is the constraint module a replacement for the IK restraint?
No, it's really different. It's not the same. It kind of looks like the same when you're using it, but it doesn't work in the same way. When you're rigging an IK, everybody is a parent and a child. It's a parent-child hierarchy. So if you move a parent, all the childs are affected. With the constraint, you don't need to have this parenting, and there can actually be brothers in your rig. So you can actually select a parent, modify it without affecting the lower part of the leg. So it's a different concept. And we have on our Learn portal also a section about the constraint nodes. So you can go there and learn more about them and see how you can use them in production. Other things we've done in this version of the software is that may not be very visible when you look at the software, and we've changed some technologies behind. So for example, now Harmony 15 supports high DPI displays on Windows and Retina displays on Mac. So the interface, the icon, the text, everything is properly scaled when you have a high DPI display on Windows, and you don't have any pixelation in those buttons. So everything now is rendered with high DPI display in mind. On the Windows side, we've also made it possible to use Harmony without QuickTime having installed on your computer. We used QuickTime in the past to import sound. So when you're importing a sound, the sound is uncompressed using the QuickTime libraries. And when you're rendering movies, we also are rendering to QuickTimes. Now, if you don't have QuickTime installed on your machine, you will still be able to import sounds. We will use, Harmony will use the Windows Media Foundation libraries to uncompress the sound. And to export movies, of course, you won't be able to export QuickTime movies because you don't have the QuickTime libraries installed, but it will be able to export WMV, so Windows Media videos, using the software. I'm on a Mac, so I don't have these options available. This is only on Windows. On the Mac, the QuickTime is part of the system, and of course, the Windows Media Foundation is not available on Mac. So this is only on the Windows side. So if you don't want to install QuickTime on your computer, you can still use Harmony to import sounds and to export movies, just not QuickTime movies. But if you install QuickTime, you'll be able to export QuickTime movies still, and QuickTime will be the libraries that are going to be used when you're importing sounds. Yeah.
So maybe you can talk just a little bit more of what is available in terms of learning material on the Learn portal, just so people know where they can sort of understand where they can go to continue to learn about these new features and how to use them properly.
Yeah, so we have actually a couple of resources you can use if you have if you want more information about features inside Harmony. We have the Learn portal. When you go on the Learn portal, you can go directly into this here to learn more about Harmony, Learn Now, or go to Storyboard Pro. These are journeys that will go through different modules to, make you learn Harmony at your own pace. We also have, we have journeys, we have courses, and we have modules. So anything you want to learn, you just go here and you can search to see if there's a course that exists for that, or if there's a module that exists for that. For example, constraints. There's a module called adding constraint to a rig. If I go here, I have all the different videos, the different courses, and the material that I can download for these. So if I click here, and actually I'm not signed in, I don't know if I'll be able to see the videos right there. I have a video that I can watch, and this video goes along these two assets that are available by downloading this. So every section, when you click on it, will tell you which asset you need from the downloaded material that you have. The other resource is our online doc, docs.toonboom.com. You can just go in a browser and type docs.toonboom.com, or inside Harmony, go under Help and use the online help. And this will open the browser at the same address. And from here, if you go in Harmony and you select the edition that you're using, either Essential, Advanced, or Premium, and then you can click on there and search for topics. So I'm looking for master, oops, I said master control. I can't type anymore. There you go, master controllers. And then you can just select one of those topics, and you'll have all the topics about the master controllers available in our documentation. So these are the two resources we have on our website. If you have other questions, feel free to contact support if you have a support available to you. And you can also check on the forums to see if anybody has already asked those questions, and if there's any answers on there. So don't hesitate to go there. Really, they're great learning resources, and it will show you all the new features, and it will teach you all the new features that we have inside Harmony 15.
So if you guys do have more questions, because we were not obviously able to answer a lot of the questions we've had today, because we're sort of running out of time right now, please email us at webinars@toonboom.com, and we'll be able to answer your questions. As well as Marc-André said, if you are on support, please email our support team. They work around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll be able to answer your questions. There's learning material available out there, as Marc-André pointed out. And of course, if you do have questions, you can always go to our forum as well, and type in your questions. There is a big Harmony community out there that will be able to sort of help you as well. So we'd like to thank you for joining us today. And as a final note, just in case you missed any of the features that Marc-André showed in this webinar, this whole session was recorded and will be online tomorrow at toonboom.com/webinars. And you can rewatch this webinar, and hopefully we've answered all your questions. Marc-André, you've done an amazing job again. Everybody has written to us telling us they're really happy with the features that have been released here, and hopefully we'll be able to see more work produced in Harmony 15. So thanks again, Marc-André.
All right, thanks again, everybody, for joining us and listening to me talking for about an hour, babbling on. All right, so thank you very much, everybody, and see you another time.